Greetings to all lovers of tales, myths, and legends. The goddess we will be talking about today needs no introduction. When we speak of Zeus' wife, we always imply Hera, despite the fact that he had other wives as well. She is described as proud, stubborn, quarrelsome, and, moreover, a jealous woman. She does not hesitate to treat her husband's mistresses harshly. Perhaps that's why she is perceived as a villain. But if you get to know her better, which we will do today, your opinion may change, or maybe it won't. In any case, trying to explain the behavior of gods or justify them is a futile and dangerous endeavor. Hera was the daughter of Rhea and Cronus, so her fate was tragic. Like her other siblings, Cronus swallowed Hera as soon as she was born. Only one of Rhea's children escaped this fate, Zeus. After the victory over Cronus, caring Rhea took her daughter to the edge of the earth, to the home of Oceanus. Here she was raised by the sea nymph Tethys. As for her further connection with Zeus, Hera was not particularly enthusiastic about the idea and rejected the Thunderer. However, this rejection only fueled his desire. Therefore, one day, when Hera was walking in the forest, Zeus transformed into a wounded cuckoo and sought her help. The goddess pitied the bird and, gently picking it up, brought it close to her chest. At that moment, the Thunderer took his true form and possessed Hera. Thus began their relationship, which they hid for about 300 years. Interestingly, there is another perspective on what happened. It does not portray Hera as a victim. With the help of her brother, she allegedly sought power and played with Zeus. She deliberately rejected him and, before the Thunderer took her, set one condition: he must marry her. They had their wedding in the land of Knossos, near the river Pharos. That's how Hera gained power. Her main functions became the protection of marriage, guarding the sanctity of marital vows, and assisting women during childbirth. It is said that, like her husband, Hera commanded thunder and lightning. With a single gesture, she could summon a storm. Her counsel was sought not only by humans but also by gods. Even Zeus himself often sought her advice. Hera was headstrong and sometimes did things against her spouse's will or mocked him, portraying him in a negative light. But don't rush to condemn her for it. Firstly, according to one version, she did not want this marriage, and secondly, Zeus was not an innocent party, and the concept of equality in marriage was not present at that time. Once, Hera went so far as to lead a full-blown rebellion against the supreme god. Poseidon, Apollo, and Athena also participated in it. They bound the Thunderer while he was sleeping, and it is unknown how it would have ended if not for Thetis, who called upon Briareus for help. The uprising failed, and the participants were punished. As a lesson, Hera was suspended on golden chains between heaven and earth, with two heavy anvils tied to her feet. After that, Zeus personally whipped his wife. This punishment slightly tamed Hera, and she began to act more subtly and cautiously. Despite the beauty of his wife, acknowledged by everyone on Olympus, Zeus did not hesitate to betray her. Hera was truly beautiful, with eyes like violets, delicate hands, wonderful curls cascading from her crown. Her eyes burned with power and serene majesty. Clothed in luxurious garments, she sat on a golden throne next to her husband, radiating majestic beauty. Additionally, every year she bathed in the canopy spring, which made her youthful again. But for the amorous Zeus, this was not enough, and he would leave the marital bed in the embrace of nymphs, goddesses, and even mortal women. Hera was terribly jealous. Her jealousy became the plot of many myths. The fact is that she treated her rivals extremely cruelly, tormenting them in any way she could. It is on such misfortunes of Zeus's lovers that myths are built. For example, the birth of Apollo and Artemis. Hera forbade the earth to provide Leto, their mother, a place to give birth to the children. Leto traveled the world, asking if any land would be a refuge for her children. In the end, the only refuge she found was the floating island of Delos, which was not considered part of the earth. Furthermore, Hera held her daughter, the goddess of childbirth, Eileithyia, captive, causing Leto to suffer in labor for 9 days. In general, she showed no mercy towards Zeus's mistresses. For example, she brought destruction upon the mortal girl Semele, who Zeus fell in love with. And to make it even more painful for her husband, she arranged everything in such a way that Zeus himself was to blame for the death of his beloved, especially when she was pregnant. Another woman who was favored by Zeus and scorned by Hera was Lamia, the daughter of Poseidon, who bore Hierophile to Zeus. Hera transformed the girl into a serpent and took away her ability to close her eyes. To fall asleep, she had to remove them at night. Lamia kept her eyes in a cup covered with a lid. One would think that after such punishment no one would want to have an affair with Zeus. But how can one refuse the supreme god? Thus, the list of those who suffered from Hera's jealousy continued to grow. For instance, when Hera learned that Zeus had an affair with another mortal, she became furious and decided to catch them in the act. However, Zeus had a very good intuition, or perhaps specific preferences, and managed to transform his beloved Io into a snow-white cow before Hera arrived. Nonetheless, his wife understood everything and demanded the cow as a gift. Zeus had to agree. Well, what else could he do? Hera, after obtaining the cow, entrusted it to the 100-eyed giant Argus, who never slept. He guarded her day and night, making it impossible for Io to escape his watchful gaze. The poor girl was freed by Hermes, who lulled Argus to sleep with his words, and as soon as all 100 eyes closed, the swift-footed god beheaded him. But it didn't end there. Hera sent gadflies to torment Io, causing her great pain and restlessness. Io traveled across lands, but only found peace in Egypt. There she regained her true form and gave birth to her son Epiphus. Hera acted cruelly towards Callisto as well. This was despite the fact that Zeus deceived her and the girl did not want to be involved with him. To cover his tracks, the thunderbolt wielder transformed Callisto into a bear. An interesting situation unfolded involving Artemis as well. In the end, Artemis hunted down and killed the she-bear. Zeus placed Callisto in the sky as a constellation. However, the jealous Hera found a way to spite her once again by forbidding Tethys and Oceanus from receiving Callisto. This is why, according to the Greeks, the Great Bear never sets below the horizon but appears to hang over the ocean, unable to wash or drink. As you can see, Hera placed great importance on the sanctity of marriage and demonstrated this through her own marriage, punishing her husband's mistresses indiscriminately. The method may be questionable, but if you think about it, Hera and Zeus, despite all their disagreements, always reached a compromise, which is quite a miracle considering what Zeus was up to. Hera's vengeance extended not only to her husband's mistresses but also to their children. She made numerous attempts to harm Dionysus and even wanted to kill him. So, she wasn't the best stepmother. In fact, she wasn't a great mother either. When she saw that her son Hephaestus was ugly, she cast him off Olympus. He later sought revenge, but that's a completely different story. But let's return to how Hera treated Zeus's illegitimate children. Perhaps the most striking example is Hercules. Even his birth was not without the involvement of his stepmother. Initially, under Hera's orders, the Fates and the goddess of childbirth, Eileithyia, did everything possible to prevent Hercules from being born. As a result, his mother Alcmene was in labor for 7 days and 7 nights. At that moment, one of Alcmene's servants, Galinthias, realized what needed to be done. She rushed to Eileithyia and the Fates to inform them that the child had supposedly already been born. The goddesses were perplexed, as how could a child come into the world without their knowledge? Distracted and struck by this news, they were bewildered. It was precisely at that moment that Hercules was born. Galinthias was punished by the Fates and transformed into a weasel. They prophesied that she would conceive through her ears and give birth through her throat. In ancient Greece, there was a strange belief about the reproduction of this animal. Or perhaps it meant something else. Eventually, Hecate took Galinthias into her service. Hercules did not forget about her either. He erected a statue in her honor and regularly offered sacrifices. But Hera didn't stop there. She continued her attacks on Hercules. For example, when he was very young, she sent serpents after him. To her surprise, the young Hercules simply strangled them. When Hercules grew older and had a family of his own, Hera temporarily deprived him of his sanity. In his madness, Hercules killed his wife and children. When he regained his senses, he was horrified by what he had done. In the end, the conflict between Hera and Hercules escalated to the point where the hero wounded the goddess somewhere near Pylos. Eventually, Hercules gained immortality, and Hera was obliged to acknowledge him and adopt him as her son. In humility, she gave him her daughter Hebe in marriage. Lastly, let's talk about the obligatory attributes of this goddess. The first and foremost is the diadem, symbolizing that Hera is the queen of the goddesses. There is simply no equal to her in power on Olympus. The peacock is the animal dedicated to her. Even her chariot is pulled by two peacocks. The chariot is made of pure silver, with golden wheels and copper spokes that glisten. Hera sits in it, adorned in luxurious garments woven by Athena herself. She also possesses two other interesting attributes: the pomegranate, symbolizing fertility, and a scepter with a cuckoo-shaped tip. The most remarkable and typical ancient representation of the goddess Hera is considered to be the statue created by the ancient Greek sculptor Polykleitos for the temple honoring Hera in Argos. That's it. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the new videos.